How does the quantitative survey look like? Here's an example of open defecation. The first is that we want to measure the behavior. On how many of the last 7 mornings did you personally defecate in the open? Or the alternative question, the question of the alternative behavior, did you personally use the toilet when to defecate when you were at home? From 0, almost never, to 5, almost always. And let us have a look at the feelings. How pleasant or unpleasant is it for you to defecate in the open or to use a latrine? These are 2 different questions. Before I said that we have to take into account the behavior that we want them to perform, but also the alternative behavior. The behavior we want them to perform is to use the toilet, and the alternative behavior is to defecate in the open. Please note that these people all have access to a toilet. Yeah. Good. Michael, now it's your turn. Your questionnaire.
Yep. So we took the results of the qualitative questionnaire to now do a quantitative questionnaire that would be used at least for 200 people. And so we took back the findings of the qualitative and used them for enriching the different questions here. So I've not listed all the questions and I've not listed the answers, but we used the scale as it was shown. The first thing was how to define if people are users or non-users. In our case, it was not so easy because you remember we have decided that a user is, we are focusing on the main meal. Not only because we had users using it for doing cookies only or bakery or whatever, but the project wanted to focus on the main meal. So we have defined the question as you see it concerning your main meal. How many times have you cooked at home in the last 4 days? And for these meals, how many times have you used the solar cooker? We found out that some people were not at home for the main meal. And we also had to discuss when was the main meal taken by people. So we had different versions and we had to deal with that. But finally, we found out it was a good way of saying if people were users or non-users of the solar cooker. Then concerning the risk factors, well, it was not so easy to find because you don't get a disease. Well, you could, like coughing because of the smoke. So we integrated this question, but we found out that some people were afraid to get burnt. So we introduced this question, how high do you evaluate the risk of getting burnt while cooking? And the severity linked to that. And we found out also that the health, a lot of people knew that it was a healthy way of cooking because the food remains tasty, and also it's not, you don't have the risk of burning it. So we introduced this in the health knowledge section. Do you think that food cooked with a solar cooker is healthier for you? Then the attitudinal factors, you can read them. So we took the one about saving time, about saving money, improving the environment. We found that for some people it was complicated to use it. To put it in the right position, I explained before, and the fact that it was slow, so it was frustrating for some people too. Next slide. Yeah, thanks. So then we took the pride factor. You remember people were proud of using it. So we also asked a question about how innovative they thought cooking with that was with the solar cooker. Safe or unsafe, do you feel? How impassioned do you feel when you use the solar cooker? How afraid do you feel when you use the gas to cook? And we introduced also a question about the taste of the food. Because previously I heard from the project team that some people like the smoky taste, but then we found out that it was more the taste of with the solar cooker that was that people were fond of. So we wanted to measure this. And then you have the norm questions about the people in the neighborhood. Do you think that you are alone to use it, or do you think it has spread and a lot of people are using it? And also the question around your relatives, how important is it the opinion of others towards this? So that's the last question.
Okay, thank
We
you.
had additional questions too, because to have more context and so on. You can take advantage of such surveys to add other questions on the context and the family size and so on. So that's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I have to mention that you need to have questions on all the RANAS factors that I presented to you, but adapted to the behavior and adapted to the context. That's important, but to all. Yeah? Good. Now we have the data, and we have data from the doers and the non-doers. Here in this example, these are latrine users and non-users of latrines. And you have the factor perceived effort to use a latrine and the perception of others' approval. And you see for each person A to W, we have now a value. Yeah, this is the answer. 2, 4, 3, and so on. And the same we have for the non-doers, person B to Z. Okay. And now we build mean scores for both factors. And you see that the mean scores for perceived effort is not that different, but the mean score for others' approval is quite different. And therefore, we have to select behavior change techniques which go for a change in others' approval to change the behavior. Why is it important to differentiate between doers and non-doers? For example, survey question, is chlorination expensive? And I have seen that there is some issue in the chat about soap and expensiveness of soap. So here, is chlorination expensive? If you do not differentiate between doers and non-doers, 80% rate chlorination as expensive, then you could do, if possible, an intervention on and make the purchase of chlorine less expensive. In many cases, this is not possible. However, if you differentiate between doers and non-doers, but you find that 80% of the doers as well as 80% of the non-doers rate chlorination as expensive, then no intervention on the price of chlorination is needed, because independently of the expensiveness of chlorine, chlorine is purchased or not. That is not the difference between the doers and the non-doers in their mindsets. However, if 20% of the doers but 70% of the non-doers rate chlorination as expensive, then the price of chlorination is a reason for not purchasing chlorine. And then we need an intervention on perceived price, which I will show you later how we do that, an intervention of the perception of a price.